teachers. I, Dr. Saloni here from Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, will be presenting a case of a 26-year-old female with acute abdomen. A patient presented in an emergency department with complaint of bleeding per vagina on and off since 3 months, fatigue and weakness since 3 months, severe lower abdominal pain since 2 days, and nausea and vomiting since 2 days. Obstetric history: at 2 months of amenorrhea, dilatation and evacuation was done in view of incomplete abortion. Repeat dilatation and evacuation was done in view of persisting bleeding per vagina after 2 months. Menstrual history: regular cycle of 3 to 5 days with normal flow. Last menstrual period, bleeding per vagina on and off since 3 months. Active married life was 1 year. Past history: no significant past history as well as personal or family history. On general physical examination, patient looked sick, pale, lethargic, oriented to time, place and person with dehydrated look. Pulse rate was 130 per minute, rapid, weak and steady. Blood pressure was 80 by 40 millimeters of mercury in right arm in supine position. Respiratory rate was 30 per minute. Oxygen saturation was 96% on room air. Bilateral air entry was normal. Temperature 97 degree Fahrenheit. Cold and clammy extremities present. Severe pallor was present, and urine output was 15 ml in last 1 hour. On per abdominal examination, abdominal distension present, no scar mark seen, no distinct mass felt, dull on percussion. Local examination: vulva and vagina healthy. On per vaginal examination, cervix mid position, soft and non-tender. Uterus mid position, soft in consistency. Exact size could not be made out. Bilateral fornices were full and tenderness present. Now, what can be the differential diagnosis? Can anyone tell me, please?
When was the evacuation done?
Sir, evacuation was done twice, and last evacuation was done 1 month back.
1 month.
My question is to gynae residents. Such a patient who has amenorrhea for 2 months and then repeated DNCC is going, what will the first thing will come to your mind? Just ectopic, DNC
Sir, incomplete abortion.
No, twice DNC has been done. Think of something else abnormal. Vesicular mode, yes. This is the chorionic or trophoblastic gestational disease has to be thought if this patient is going repeated abortions. So that it should come, the first thing should come in the mind. Ectopic will not last for 2 months. You are getting my point? It will not last. It will be diagnosed immediately. These are the vesicular moles which leads to repeated DLC. Alright? So remember it always. Maybe it might be different, but this is what I think.
Please go back to the slide where you put when the DFC was done. So see from this, and that is the point which Dr. Raj Govind asked, the chronological relationship of these events with the presenting complaints was not clear from your presentation, and this is a frequent mistake which students make in the exam. When you are presenting a story, each part of the story has to fit in with the previous or the next part, so that the examiner gets the complete picture.
I think you should learn from Dr. V.K. Kapoor how to present a case and how to do the research work, methodology. You should learn from him. Wonderful teacher. Thank you.
So, differential diagnosis can be surgical causes like acute appendicitis or intestinal perforation, genitourinary causes like urinary calculi, medical causes like gastroenteritis, colitis or diabetic ketoacidosis, drugs and toxin, and lastly obstetric and gynecological causes, ruptured ectopic pregnancy, severe pelvic inflammatory disease, uterine rupture, red degeneration of fibroid, twisted ovarian cyst, heredity from mole with perforation, septic abortion or abruptio placentae.
Sorry to interrupt again. In a clinical discussion, obstetric and gynecological causes should be mentioned first. The other causes will come later. See, from a theoretical point of view, 26-year-old lady will live in town, this is all right. But in this case, first diagnosis is obstetric and gynecology.
How will you divide? So, how will you divide abdomen into 4 quadrants anterior?
Sir, center part first will be divided into 4 quadrants. For middle part is epigastrium and
4 quadrant के लिए तो middle part कैसा होगा? You tell me 9 quadrants then. Tell me 9 quadrants. How will you divide? How will you do the marking?
sir, first two parallel lines are drawn below the third mid-inguinal subposterior anterior span, superior span.
No, 9 quadrants. 4 quadrants को करना तो कैसे करोगे? Simple, how will you label these quadrants? Tell me.
Sir, the uppermost part is epigastrium. Then flanks will come.
Epigastrium कैसे आ जाएगा? Either right quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. That's simple as that. If you are dividing in the 9, then in the center epigastric region will go. You can divide the pathology of acute abdominal pain either through anatomical location or through etiology. You have to choose one way and then systematic approach as Dr. Kapoor is saying has to go. Now this is the case of obstetrics gynecology department. So you concentrate on, but all residents, whether they are from surgery or they are from medicine or from gynae or from any other general broad specialty, they should know these are fundamentals. I am not talking anything which is very much every day. You do not require. You go to the ward, you see every day these things. So always remember how to locate the pain, and the radiation of the pain is also important. So,
now to further narrow down our differential diagnosis, some investigations were done. Routine investigations, HB hemoglobin was 3.8 gram per deciliter and rest of the investigations were normal. Some specific investigations were done. Urine pregnancy test was positive. USG whole abdomen suggestive of ascites. Uric hemoperitoneum. Uterine contour not well defined. Uric perforation. Bilateral agnesia appears normal. On USG guided diagnostic tab, frank blood was aspirated. Now what can be the differential diagnosis after investigations? I would like to ask this from the audience. Anyone please?
Hypergenic uterine rupture.
Yes, ma'am.
further say about the serum beta Hg, titers of the serum beta Hg, that will differentiate ectopic pregnancy through the trophoblastic.
Did you do an X-ray just to say that this is a perforation? X-ray abdomen?
X-ray abdomen was not done, sir.
Can you ultrasound say that there is a
Patient had come in emergency.
The patient had come in emergency in evening hours.
Shock.
So,
X-ray करने में तो evening, morning और midnight किसी करेंगे. Fundamental चीज immediate diagnosis हो जाएगी.
so in order to rule out ectopic pregnancy, perforation of uterus, ruptured corpus luteal and perforating mole, beta Hg was done and it was 66,000 milli-international unit per ml. So again differential diagnosis was made. Ruptured corpus luteal cyst, it can present as one-sided pelvic pain, but it was not present in our case. Can present as amenorrhea, acute abdomen, hemoperitoneum, urine pregnancy test will be negative, which is positive in our case. Beta Hg will be normal, which is highly raised in our case, and color Doppler will show ring of fire appearance, which was not present in our case. Next is perforation of uterus. It can present as abnormal bleeding, mild lower abdominal pain, dilatation and evacuation. Can be there is history of dilatation and curettage as well. Beta HCG will be mildly raised, but it was highly raised in our case, and urine pregnancy test may be positive. USG perforation can be seen. Third is ectopic pregnancy. It can present as amenorrhea, acute abdomen with shock, vaginal bleeding, hemoperitoneum, and urine pregnancy test will be positive. Beta HCG will be low, but this is contrary to our case. And on USG transvaginal sonography, empty uterus seen and no intrauterine G-sex seen. Lastly will be perforating mole. It can present as amenorrhea, vaginal bleeding, abdominal pain, hemoperitoneum, urine pregnancy test may be positive, beta HCG will be raised, and USG show echogenic lesion in uterine cavity. So in perforating mole, all the points are in favor, while we have ruled out the points which was not in our favor in other differential diagnosis. So just to summarize my case, a 26-year-old female with acute abdomen and shock, bleeding per vagina on and off since 3 months, dilatation and evacuation done twice, USG suggestive of hemoperitoneum, diagnostic tap showed frank blood, severe anemia present, HB 3.8 gram per deciliter, urine pregnancy test was positive, and beta HCG 66,000 milli-international unit per ml. So a provisional clinical diagnosis is vesicular mole with perforation. Now, since the patient was unstable with shock and hemoperitoneum, decision for the urgent exploratory laparotomy was taken after due consent explaining the condition of patient and risk. Now I would like to call Dr. Sati from Department of Anesthesia to discuss the course of this emergency surgery from anesthetic point of view.
Good morning, respected teachers and my colleagues. I'll be presenting the intraoperative management of this patient from the anesthesia point of view. Patient was shifted from intensive care unit into the operation theatre for emergency exploratory laparotomy, and the patient was conscious and oriented. Was received from intensive care unit with 20 gauge intraarterial cannula placed in the right upper limb, 2 18 gauge IV cannula with crystalloid fluid on flow, a urinary catheter, and an infusion of noradrenaline of 80 mics per ml at 5 ml per hour. With the vitals of, pulse rate was 156 per minute and it was rapid, weak and thready. Blood pressure was 80 by 40 millimeters of mercury. Saturation was 96% on room air. Temperature was 97 degrees Fahrenheit and respiratory rate was 30 per minute and it was rapid and shallow. Rapid sequence induction was done and airway was secured with a 7.5 millimeters endotracheal tube after pre-oxygenating the patient with oxygen by face mask. Plenty of clots with fresh blood was evacuated from the peritoneal cavity and the estimated blood loss was calculated to be 2 liters. Correspondingly, massive blood transfusion protocol was activated. During transfusion, 3 units of packed red cells, 3 units of fresh frozen plasma and 3 units of platelets were transfused along with 1 gram of IV tranexamic acid and 1 ampule of intravenous calcium gluconate was given. Intraoperatively, IV fluids were given according to the blood loss and urine output, which was about 70 ml for 2 hours and 30 minutes of surgery. Following the completion of surgery, patient was shifted to intensive care unit, intubated, sedated and paralyzed with the vitals of heart rate of 110 per minute, blood pressure of 100 by 65 millimeters of mercury in the right arm supine position with an infusion of noradrenaline at 2 ml per hour, saturation of 100% on Bain circuit on 10 liters per minute of oxygen and temperature was 98.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I would like to call back Dr. Saloni for the further presentation.
Intraoperative findings. Peroperatively, massive hemoperitoneum was present. Approximately 2 liters of fresh blood suction out along with 500 to 600 cc clots. Uterus and agnexa identified. 5 perforations were seen on various sides of uterus, 2 anteriorly and 2 posteriorly near fundus, and a large perforation of 3 by 2 centimeters seen near the left cornal end, which was actively bleeding. Upper abdomen was also explored, which was found normal. Although patient was nulliparous, but multiple perforations were present which were unrepairable and actively bleeding. So decision of hysterectomy was taken after discussing with the unit head and the team. Consent for hysterectomy was taken from husband in view of intraoperative findings and total abdominal hysterectomy with bilateral salpingectomy done. Ovaries were conserved. 3 units of ERBC, 3 units of FFP and 3 units of platelet were transfused intraoperatively. Now this is the gross specimen showing the perforation. These two perforations are shown anteriorly and these two are posteriorly. This one is showing the left coronal perforation. Next is the cut section of the specimen.
DNC कहाँ पे हुई थी?
Sir, local hospital outside Jaipur. On cut section, at fundus, growth along with hemorrhage extending up to myometria and serosa was seen. Now I would like to call Dr. Chetna from Department of Pathology to discuss the pathological aspect.
Good morning, everyone. By now, everyone must have known it's a case of gestational trophoblastic diseases, and since it includes a wide spectrum of lesions, which ranges in the level of aggressiveness from benign one that includes the partial hydatidiform mole and complete hydatidiform mole. After that, there are benign lesions which are close mimickers of malignancies, which include placental side nodule, exaggerated placental side reaction. After that, at the end of the spectrum, we have some malignant lesions, also known as gestational trophoblastic neoplasia, including invasive mole and choriocarcinoma. Since it is a continuing spectrum of lesions, so hence it becomes mandatory to discuss each individual characteristics of each one by one. So to begin with, first one is the partial mole. Grossly it presents with immature placental tissue which is admixed with vesicles. The vesicles in partial mole are smaller in size and they are less in number in comparison to complete mole. The microscopic section from the same indicates two population of the villi. On the right hand side you can see there are two population of the villi. One is the smaller one, also known as fibrotic villi, and on the other side you see larger villi showing hydropic change. Also in the microscopic picture you can see there is so in the microscopic picture in the partial mole, when we take a section, you can see two populations of villi. One is the smaller one and the fibrotic one, and other population is the larger one showing the hydropic change. Also you can see the mild trophoblastic proliferation around the villi. So next in the spectrum we have complete mole. In the complete mole, you can see the uterus has become bulky and it is filled with extensive semi-transparent vesicles. These vesicles are obviously they are larger in size and they are more in number. When we take section from the complete mole, you can see there is diffuse involvement of the villi. As you can see, only single population of the villus. There is this hydropic change in the villi, and right in the center you can see the cistern formation, showing the hydropic change. Also you can see the trophoblastic hyperplasia is more in comparison to the partial mole. Next in line we have invasive mole. As the name indicates, it's a molar gestation when the villus component invades the endometrium. This is the endometrium cavity. You can see there is invasion within the myometrium and the uterine vessel. Exactly when we take a section from here, you can see the smooth muscle fibers of the myometrium entrapping the villi. This is the villi and these are the smooth muscles. Next, to continue the spectrum. So in this case our diagnosis is exaggerated placental side reaction. It's a benign non-neoplastic condition and it closely mimics malignancy. So the challenge here in this case,
पार्शियल मोल का कैसा जेनेटिक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन होगा, कंप्लीट मोल का कैरोटाइपिक कैसा होगा?
Sir, I'll answer that. Complete mole में क्या होता है sir? It is a android उसका होता है, sperm का doubling होती है. Then it will be only X cells. That is karyotyping से हम वो differentiate कर सकते हैं.
So one is pattern. If it is pattern,
it is pattern.
Also maybe 69, right? XX.
XX will be there.
All right.
Yes.
And if it is maternal in origin, then 46XX, then it will be partial. And if the maternal in origin, then chances of choriocarcinoma will be very high.
Yes.
So it was very necessary for you to tell the gynecologist or the जब आपने report भेजी सुने इसका karyotyping कराई है आप डिटेल बताना
सर जो मोलर प्रेगनेंसी है उसमें कंप्लीट मोल होता है जिसके अंदर एम्ब्रियोनल टिश्यू इज नॉट बीइंग फॉर्म ओनली this placental tissue is being formed है ना जो विलाएं हैं that are abnormal जो जैसे हम आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हैं कि नॉर्मल विलस है या मोलर प्रेगनेंसी के विलस है फिर उसमें हम देखते हैं तो ये दीज आर स्पर्म्स के डबलिंग होती है तो इट इज जो मेटर्नल जो आपकी कैरोटिपिंग जो जीन्स हैं वो आपकी जो प्रोटीन्स है दैट विल नॉट बी देयर इन द कंप्लीट मोल while in the partial mole there will be there because I know on IHC
can also be seen in the partial mole. You can see the immature placental tissue in the partial
Some
mole.
maternal part will be there.
Yes, sir.
So it will not be completely absent from the
Yes, sir.
nucleus will not be completely absent.
Yes, sir. So in the partial mole, you can see the fetal part and the maternal part as well. There is a complete mole. There is complete
I
replacement.
agree with you, but the potential of the carcinoma, developing carcinoma is very much. Chances of this maternal in origin is very high. The partial mole it is less.
Yes.
Of course it is there, right to find.
So why I have not reported this case as invasive mole because there was a complete absence of villi in whatever sections I have seen. Plus, had it been a case of choriocarcinoma, then in that case I should have seen it's an aggressive neoplasm. It is present at one end of the spectrum. So there should be mitotic activity, which was not present in my case. Plus, along with that, there is absence of hemorrhage and necrosis, which was also not present here. So the mitotic activity, complete absence of villi, and there is absence of hemorrhage and necrosis. That's why I have ruled out. Plus choriocarcinoma, it's a triphasic neoplasm. You should have the proliferation of all three tropoblastic cells, including syncytial trophoblast, cytotrophoblast, and intermediate trophoblast. But in case of exaggerated placental site reaction, that is in our case, we are seeing only monotonous population of single tropoblastic cells at the implantation site, as it is just the exaggerated phenomenon, physiological phenomenon at the implantation site. So we are seeing only the monotonous population of intermediate trophoblast cells. So in exaggerated placental site reaction, as the name indicates, there is exuberant infiltration of the endometrium and the superficial third of myometrium by the implantation site intermediate trophoblast only. So grossly it's a placental pathology only. In the microscopy I have taken these two pictures. In the left hand side you can see this arrow depicts the presence of smooth muscle cells of the myometrium. And these smooth muscle cells, they are splayed by the presence of these tropoblastic cells, which are marked by these stars. They are all intermediate trophoblasts. Had it been a case of choriocarcinoma, there should have been presence of hemorrhage, necrosis, and presence of brisk mitotic activity cells. The right hand side, it is just the hyper view depicting the presence of these smooth muscle fibers, and these smooth muscle fibers of myometrium, they are invaded by these trophoblastic cells. They are all intermediate trophoblasts having abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm with hyperchromatic nuclei and bizarre nucleus. Next, just to complete the spectrum, few words about the choriocarcinoma. Choriocarcinoma grossly presents as a bulky, dark, thin red friable tumor. As you can see, in the grossly we have extensive hemorrhage and necrosis. The microscopic sections from the same indicates it's a triphasic neoplasm. So you see all three kinds of trophoblasts. So there are these sheets of trophoblasts which are present. There is this infiltrative and destructive pattern. And these are the high mitotic activity are seen here in the background of hemorrhage and necrosis, which were missing in our case, sir. The mitotic activity was not there, hemorrhage and necrosis was not there, plus, so that is how it is this patient has to be followed up. So that's our advice. Beta FCG monitoring and the close follow-up. Now I would invite Dr. Prabjot for the embryology part. Good morning everyone. to discuss with the normal, I'm here to discuss the normal development of the trophoblast. After 7 days of fertilization, implantation occurs and the blastula, it differentiates into an inner cell mass which forms the embryo proper, and at the outside there are trophoblasts. These trophoblasts further in the second week differentiate into cytotrophoblasts and syncytiotrophoblasts. Trophoblasts are basically meant for implantation. They erode the endometrial wall and as well as they form the placental villus. Normal placental villus has a core which contains fetal blood vessels. These fetal blood vessels are the branches from the umbilical arteries and veins. The wall of the villus is formed by cytotrophoblasts and syncytiotrophoblasts. Between the villi there is intervillous space where maternal blood is there and exchange occurs in between these two spaces. Besides the cyto and syncytiotrophoblasts, there are certain intermediate trophoblasts also which invade the endometrium and they erode the spiral arteries. So these basically these intermediate trophoblasts have exaggeratedly invaded the endometrium in this case. When there occurs formation of complete mole, as already discussed, an anucleated ovum is fertilized with either with a single sperm or with two sperms. So either the single sperm with X chromosome, normally in 85% it carries the X and it duplicates, or two different sperms might fertilize an anucleated ovum. Then the product which is formed has got a diploid karyotype. So because the product is carrying only the paternal chromosomes, that is why normal fetal tissue is not formed, and the placental villi they transform into the hydropic or the dilated villus in case of complete H mole. While in case of partial H mole, the normal ovum is fertilized with two different sperms, and that's why a structure with triploid karyotype is formed. So in this case, some normal fetal tissue is also there, and two types of villi are formed. Some are small and fibrotic and others are dilated, and they are filled with fluid. For further discussion, I would invite Dr. Saloni. Thank you.
Now, post-operative course. On day 1, patient was extubated in ICU and vitals were normal. HB was 8.9 gram per deciliter. 2 units of FFP and 1 unit PRBC was transfused. On day 2, vitals were normal. HB was 10.2 gram per deciliter and patient was shifted to gynec ward. On day 3, again vitals were normal, urine passed. And from day 4 to day 7, patient was comfortable, vitals were normal, abdomen was soft and no bleeding per vagina. So patient was discharged on day 7. Follow-up with beta HCG was done because the disease may have progressed to malignancy. So we can see from here, from day 0, the beta HCG was 66,000 milli-international units per ml, and it shows a decreasing trend. And on day 21, it came out to be 4 milli-international units per ml, which was normal. Thereafter, patient was followed weekly till 3 consecutive negative reports, then monthly for 6 months, and every time beta HCG was within the normal range. During the entire follow-up, no abnormality was detected during the general physical and gynecological examination. So to discuss the review of literature, I would like to call Dr. Anjana from Department of Obstetric and Gynecology.
Good morning to everyone. As case discussed, our confirmatory diagnosis of our case is the exaggerated pressure side reaction, which is a part of a gestational trophoblastic disease. So I am briefly described here. It is a heterogeneous group of interrelated lesions arises from the abnormal proliferations of the placental trophoblast, which commonly follow after a molar pregnancy, but it can occur any gestational event like induced or spontaneous abortion, ectopic pregnancy, and after a term pregnancy. Classification of gestational trophoblastic is already described by the Dr. Chetna. Risk factors: it is an extremity of age more than 35 or less than 20, and paternal age doesn't influence the risk of this condition. And Asian ethnicity, history of previous molar pregnancy, there is a chances of 0.6 to 2% in previous 1 molar pregnancy, and chances of recurrence 16 to 28% in previous 2 molar pregnancies. Smoking and dietary deficiency of vitamin A, beta carotene, animal fat, protein, and folate. Exaggerated placental site reaction. It is a benign non-neoplastic trophoblastic lesion. There is an extensive infiltration of endometrium and myometrium at the implantation site by the intermediate trophoblastic cells. In that form clusters of single cells. There is an incidence reported 1.6% in, it is available in all literature. It is a rare entity and diagnosis only chiefly mainly by histopathological examinations. Only 12 cases have been reported in English literature based on the PubMed from 1992 through 1992 to 2020. Treatment. Suction medicine is a treatment of choice in the molar pregnancies, and in some selected cases required hysterectomy, and some high-risk cases required prophylactic chemotherapy. Indications of hysterectomy. In vesicular mole, there is a chances of persistent post-molar GTL, persistent gestation trophoblastic disease. In complete mole, there is chances 15%, and in partial mole, there is chances of 1 to 5%. So prophylactic method. For prophylactic chemotherapy, we can give a methotrexate or either actinomycin D, so it can prevent the metastasis. And
which is more commonly used?
Methotrexate, sir.
What is the dose?
Sir, 1 milligram per kg per body weight.
How many days?
Sir, if we give only prophylactically, we can give single dose in complete mole, and if we can give in low risk cases, we can give for 4 days, 1, 3, 5, 7, and repeat course are given after following the beta ICC level. If beta ICC level comes normal, then 3 consecutive dose, 3 consecutive regime of given.
What will happen to folic acid? If you
Folic acid which add when we give methotrexate 1 milligram per kg per body weight 1, 3, 5, 7 days, then we require to give folic acid on 2, 4, 6, 8 days, because methotrexate is a folic acid inhibitor and there is chances of more mucosal ulceration. So we give folic acid, and we also give an oral dose of folic acid.
these things should be known to all diagnostics.
This is not prophylactic, it is therapeutic treatment.
We can give prophylactic chemotherapy in patients with high risk patient, or if there is not available any follow-up or follow-up unreliable. Now indications of hysterectomy. It is first intractable bleeding in elderly patients, perforating mole, placental site trophoblastic tumor. Although hysterectomy doesn't prevent metastasis, so patients still require follow-up with assessment of beta ICC level, because it is chances of metastasis, chances of persistent of GTN due to occult metastasis conditions to 3 to 8%. Indications of chemotherapy in gestational trophoblastic disease. It is a high level beta ICC level persists more than 4 weeks after evacuation, and urinary beta ICC level more than 30,000 international units per 24 hours, or serum beta ICC level more than 20,000 international units. Rising of beta ICC level more than 10%. Plateauing of the SCC levels. Invasive mole. Histological evidence of choriocarcinoma, evidence of metastasis, and when hormonal follow-up is unreliable or not available in the high-risk patients with complete mole and in high-risk scores. So prophylactic chemotherapy with methotrexate or actinomycin D prevent metastasis and reduce the incidence of the post-molar GTN in up to 3 to 8%. Some case reports are published in journals. This is a one case report published from Haryana in 2020. In this condition, patient present as a persistent bleeding after delivery, and hysterectomy was done. On histopathological diagnosis was confirmed. And another case is published in 2015. Is a patient represented as a postpartum collapse due to a small perforation in the placental side bed. Subtotal hysterectomy was done, and on histopathological diagnosis is confirmed. And another entity of case is patient published in journal from Kerala in 2016. In this patient present as persistent bleeding after evacuation of missed abortion, and she can't respond to medical management, then go for hysteroscopy. On finding is a fleshy mass, biopsy taken from mass, and on histopathological examination, confirmation of exaggerated placental site reaction. So this condition is present in different scenarios. Now challenges. Life-saving process. It is a big challenge for us to take the decision as the patient is nulliparous, young patient, and patient is she was bleed profusely, and there is a multiple perforation in a uterus which was not repairable, and it is represented as a hemorrhagic shock. So we have as a big life-saving procedure, we took the decision for the hysterectomy on this patient. And the psychological trauma, as a patient, when nulliparous patient, when she came to know about that she had no uterus and she had no any child in his family, so and there is a not possibility of the chances of carrying her own baby in a womb. So there is a big mental health trauma to the patient. So there is a counseling in this regarding. Counseling is important role in this patient. And future reproductive aspect, we gave her options as a adoption, surrogacy, and uterine transplants. Thank you to all.